Right bracket chapter 20. The case of Father Adam. It should be borne in mind that these wonderful mysteries, as they are supposed to be, are only mysteries because of the ignorance of men, and when men and women are troubled in spirit over those things which come to light through the proper channel of intelligence, they only betray the weakness, ignorance, and folly. Mill. Star 15:825. Nearly every religion in the world has broken off from some other religion, some from an originally true church, but most from some other dissenter. Almost all Protestant churches have come from their mother church, the Catholic. Likewise, doctrines in these churches usually come from perverting or changing true ones. Little deviations and modifications soon become great ones. After the passage of time, they can even become directly opposite to the original teachings. For the belief of transmigration or reincarnation to be accepted by most people in the world, there must have originally been some basis of truth for it. John A. Widtsoe acknowledged this when he wrote, "Reincarnation, often known as metempsychosis, is an ancient doctrine. It dates from the earliest corruption of truth, from the very dawn of human history, when mankind first departed from the simple principles of the gospel. In some form it has existed at all times in all lands. It is an excellent example of the distortion of beautiful fundamental truths." Evid. And Recon. Widtsoe, 1960 ed. Page 362. Widtsoe acknowledged that this belief started from the dawn of human history, and that it has existed at all times in all lands. Certainly it has some basis of truth. According to him, it is an excellent example of the distortion of beautiful fundamental truths, but he does not explain what that truth was. We know that it has gone through the Roman Empire, through Greece, all through China, India, and even the dawn of Egypt. We must admit that somewhere in ancient history the concept of reincarnation began in truth. Spencer Palmer, professor of comparative religions at BYU, also noted this fact, saying, "It may well be a corruption or counterfeit of the plan of salvation." Ensign, Op. Cit. August 1989, page 53. If this doctrine even closely resembles the plan of salvation, all the more reason for our serious consideration and investigation. From an encyclopedia on the history of religion, it states, "Even the gods, according to the transmigration theory, are involved in the cycle of existence, the samsara, and must again descend to lower forms of life when their time comes round." Enk. Of Rel. and Ethics 12:435. According to Dr. Hugh Nibley, this doctrine was taught as a part of the program of the gods. But the matter dealt with, or what Walter Wheely calls the substance of the Orphic mysteries, is threefold. 1. The right bracket creation and pre-existence, the genesis of gods, the cosmos and me. 2. The fall of man and its necessary retribution, and 3. His ultimate destiny and goal, expressed in the Pythagorean and Orphic traditions in the doctrine of transmigration of souls. These will be readily recognized as the three great eschatological themes of the past, present, and future, as they are so clearly set forth in the Egyptian Book of the Dead. The Ancient State, Nibley, page 321. However, Dr. Nibley went on to explain that the Egyptians did not believe in the same reincarnation, or a repetition of births into mortality, as taught today. And from another Egyptologist comes a similar statement. During these millennia the dynasties of pharaohs had developed in symbolic terms the evolution of the royal principle, godhood, in the individual. Of this the pharaoh himself was the prototype. The Opening of the Way, Isha Lubitsch, page 5. And still another professor of Egyptology, Dr. S. Morans, made similar observations about the Egyptians. The gods are thus individual persons, defined and characterized by their form and name. In this respect they are like human beings. Like men, the gods are created, and, what is more, they are created by a primordial god. Egyptian Religion, Morans, page 24. He noted other similar statements. These creatures are either male or female, since they are persons, often called father or mother, and are related to man by the act of creation. Page 26. One point needs to be emphasized in conclusion. The cosmic deities are as a rule wholly in human form, page 31, and that they go from an incarnation and thence to a father-son relationship, page 30. Through an right bracket incarnation of the deity, he ceased to be God in the full sense of the word, page 37. Those who believe that Michael, in his progression as a god, became Adam, the first man on this earth, will see a similarity to what the Egyptologists are saying. One of the major books on reincarnation, Coming Back, has emphasized that man has an origin with God. There is a bona fide method for the attainment of spiritual perfection by the spiritual spark of soul, and if he is properly guided, he is very easily sent back home, back to Godhead, from where he originally fell. Op. Cit. Page 46. History clearly points to the doctrine that the gods participated in a form of rotation from heaven to earth and back again. The descent of gods into mortality and then returning to their former position has also come from the oldest known sacred records of India. For example, from the research of the Hare Krishna reincarnationists comes the following. The Vedas of India record the most astounding events in the entire history of the world: the descents of God himself into this universe to deliver transcendental knowledge for the benefit of all human beings. Incarnations of Godhead, page 9. In a personal interview with some of their leading authorities, the author learned the following basis of that belief. God is exalted and perfect, but he can come back into mortality. However, he does not come down as we do into a world of sin, weakness and temptation. He is like a bright gem that comes down into a mud puddle, but the mud does not affect him. With a slight rinse, he is as clean as before. However, we come down and are affected by the dirt and absorb the mud. We must continually try to cleanse ourselves to be clean like he is, but it will take a long time to become like God. God is perfected and we strive to become like him. We respect his high and holy position because we are on such a lower level. But after we become as he is, then we are on a familiar basis with him. We respect the President of the United States and honor him by the name of President, but to his friends surrounding him, they may say, George or Bill, would you pass the toast? God is still our God, but we become like him, act like him, and are familiar with him. From the Jewish Kabbalah, a similar theme has emerged. It is recorded that Adam, too, figures in this plan of the four worlds. In the first world we find him as the upper heavenly man, the archetype not only of the forms to follow, but of man himself. Kabbalah, Charles Ponce, pages 70 to 71. These four worlds are four different stations or conditions which Adam stepped down through, and they compose the universal man, the animus mundi. In this theme his brain is located in the first world, his heart in the second world, his breath in the third world, and his genitals in the fourth world. Ibid. The Theosophists who have studied ancient records also confirm that mortals become gods and will eventually return into mortality. By far the greatest help to evolvement are the masters. These are spiritual giants, men and women who have progressed far beyond the human race, who no longer need to incarnate, but who do so in order to aid the struggling race. Enk. Of Ama. Rel. Page 130. Through previous chapters in this book, we have discussed many of the differences between those who believe in reincarnation and those who believe in the gospel of Jesus Christ. Here is a basic similarity. The doctrine pertaining to the life and incarnation of Adam. Here is the original basis of truth that gave birth to the greatly modified theory of reincarnation as we know it today. From an overview of the beliefs of many religions and nations supporting reincarnation, many of which extend back to the beginning of time, there is a similarity in their understanding of and respect for the first man on earth. From India, China, Greece and Egypt, we glean many similar and respectful statements concerning that person called Adam. From these statements it appears that Adam, Michael, has been going from earth to earth and mortality to mortality, and further that Adam and Eve are not the only ones who make such journeys from earth to earth. Every good man and woman who reaches godhood will be going down on other worlds to again become mortal. This sounds like reincarnation or transmigration, but it is not for all mankind, just those who become gods. Brigham Young spoke a great deal on this, and indicated that all worthy men would have a chance to do the same. Consider what he is saying here. After men have got their exaltations and their crowns have become gods, even the sons of God are made kings of kings and lords of lords. They have the power then of propagating their species in spirit, and that is the first of their operations with regard to organizing a world. Power is then given to them to organize the elements, and then commence the organization of tabernacles. How can they do it? Have they to go to that earth? Yes, and Adam will have to go there, and he cannot do without Eve. He must have Eve to commence the work of generation, and they will go into the garden, and continue to eat and drink of the fruits of the corporeal world, until this grosser matter is diffused sufficiently through their celestial bodies to enable them, according to the established laws, to produce mortal tabernacles for their spiritual children. JD 6:275. When Adam came to this earth, he was returning into mortality. It was not his first time as a mortal, nor would it be his last. He had probably been a mortal man many times, and would continue that process for all eternity on earths that he creates. This is the basic thesis upon which reincarnation is founded, but with one major deviation: Adam was not born again from his mother's womb. There was to be no rebirth as a baby or going through childhood again. Adam came here with a celestial body which became mortal by charging it with mortal food, even though it was still a celestial body. In other words, it is like changing the contents of a sponge that was once filled with fruit juice and later changed to vegetable juice. His body was filled with celestial fluid before he descended, and then it was charged with mortal blood. Brigham Young gave many discourses in his lifetime in support of this doctrine, and it is not the intent of this chapter to dwell on the mechanics of it. But by way of a brief explanatory statement, in 1873, the Deseret News reported the following. Brigham stated that Adam said, "I once dwelt upon an earth something like this in a mortal state. I was faithful, I received my crown and exaltation. I have the privilege of extending my work, and to its increase there shall be no end." June 18, 1873, page 308. Not everything in the Bible is to be taken literally, such as the Genesis story of how Adam and Eve were created. Furthermore, there are many things which are briefly described that cannot be given in their full meaning. Sometimes a lesser part must be recorded because people cannot understand the right bracket full and more complete meaning. Some information is not always accurate either, according to our definition of terms. For instance, in the book of Genesis it is written, "And all the days that Adam lived were 930 years. And he died." Gen. 5:5. So Moses the servant of the Lord died there in the land of Moab, according to the word of the Lord. But no man knoweth of his sepulchre unto this day. And Moses was 120 years old when he died. Jude 34:5-7. However, there is evidence that neither of them actually died, but were translated, not buried. Do you think God revealed that? I am satisfied he did not. The person who revised these books of the Bible added that by way of explanation. How do they know he, Moses, died, or how do they know the Lord buried him? They simply learned that Moses went out of the midst of the people. They did not know what became of him, so they supposed he died, and that the Lord buried him, because nobody else had done so. No man knoweth of his sepulchre unto this day. No wonder, because he did not have any sepulchre. According to what we have learned, he was treated the same as Elijah was, not taken up in a chariot of fire perhaps, but translated, quickened by the power of God, that he might remain as a witness of the Lord unto the last day. He appeared with Elijah to Jesus in the Mount of Transfiguration. It is appointed unto all men once to die, but some men have been translated, as it was in the days of Enoch, and they will, like others, pass through the great change. I just refer to this to show you that Moses could not have written that, although it is recorded in one of these books that were written by Moses, the fifth book, called Deuteronomy. Charles W. Penrose, Cole. Disc. June 25, 1893. Behold, this we know, that he, Alma, was a righteous man, and the saying went abroad in the church that he was taken up by the Spirit, or buried by the hand of the Lord, even as Moses. But behold, the Scriptures saith the Lord took Moses unto himself, and we suppose that he has also received Alma in the Spirit, unto himself, therefore, for this cause we know nothing concerning his death and burial. Alma 45:19. Jude said there was an argument between Michael, the archangel, and the devil who disputed about the body of Moses. Jude 1:9. There are two basic principles involved in the thesis of reincarnation theology. 1. That a man can reach a period of time when he achieves a state of excellence, perfection, or exaltation, and 2. That gods become involved with a cycle, or return into mortality. Both of these premises have their counterpart in the restoration of the gospel. As to the first, that men achieve a state of perfection, it was taught early in church history by the prophet Joseph Smith himself. God himself was once as we are now, and is an exalted man, and sits enthroned in yonder heavens. That is the great secret. TPJS, page 345. When you climb up a ladder, you must begin at the bottom, and ascend step by step, until you arrive at the top, and so it is with the principles of the gospel. You must begin with the first, and go on until you learn all the principles of exaltation. But it will be a great while after you have passed through the veil before you will have learned them. TPJS, page 348. And Lorenzo Snow's oft-quoted couplet also supports this. As man is, God once was, as God is, man may become. And so the cycle continues. Right bracket. As to the second part that the gods come down into mortality, this has been more difficult for even the Mormons to believe. Mother Eve is called the mother of all living. She is responsible for her children and seeks to have them all return to her from this earth with that valuable experience. She knew that men and women must come into mortality so they could become wiser, stronger and capable of becoming like their father and mother who gave them life. Father Adam and Mother Eve, as creators of so many children, learned a very important reason for living this life, so that their eyes shall be opened, and ye shall be as gods, knowing good and evil. Gen. 3:5. In the Garden of Eden was a tree of mortality, a tree of knowledge of good and evil, which if they ate thereof, would make them as gods, knowing good and evil. It is here established that eating from this tree would be enough for them to know, understand, experience and comprehend sufficiently to qualify them for the stature of gods. Mother Eve was committed to the life of a goddess in every way. She was the epitome of virtue and holiness, not the victim of debauchery and carnal seduction, as some profess. The devil was not the father of Cain through Eve, and the fall was not an act of adultery or sexual impurity. Ancient histories often speak of the honor, glory and immortality of Adam and Eve. They teach that they descended from the heavens to come down on this earth to fulfill the mission of propagation and instruction. These doctrines are very similar to those of early Mormonism, for Brigham Young repeatedly said, "We have heard a great deal about Adam and Eve, how they were formed, etc. Some think that he was made like an right bracket adobe, and the Lord breathed into him the breath of life, for we read, From dust thou art and unto dust thou shalt return. Well, he was made from the dust of the earth, but not of this earth. He was made just the same way you and I are made, but on another earth." L. John Nuttall JRNL 118. Before me I see a house full of Eves. What a crowd of reflections the word Eve is calculated to bring up. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. I am looking upon a congregation designed to be just such beings. Mill. Star, 31:267. If you are faithful to your covenants, you will become mothers of nations. You will become Eves to earths like this, and when you have assisted in peopling one earth, there are millions of earths still in the course of creation. And when they have endured 1,000,000,000 times longer than this earth, it is only as it were the beginning of your creations. JD 8:208. How clear and beautiful is the whole concept of continuing the creation of worlds and the generations of men. The basic principles of both those who believe in reincarnation and those who believe in the gospel begin with the same lofty and divine doctrine that man can reach upward to mingle with gods and become like them. And then as an Adam and Eve returned to mortality to continue their species as mortals. They once were mortals, eventually gained immortality, and then once again took upon themselves another condition of mortality. This was their great sacrifice so that all mankind might climb up the same ladder according to the same principles of truth and righteousness. This is the magnificent doctrine of the perpetuation of men and gods. The doctrine was pure in the beginning, but soon minor changes, deviations, and man-made ideas were instituted, resulting in the difference between Adam and Eve taking upon right bracket themselves mortality through consuming mortal food, or by actually being born again. And also that not just those who hold the office of an Adam and Eve returned to earth as part of their role as gods, but all mankind had to return to mortality in the process of their becoming gods. The illustration on the following page roughly shows the life course of man, illustrating the probations he takes to achieve eternal life among the gods. This simple model outlines the plan of salvation as portrayed in the gospel of Jesus Christ. In brief, the true life cycle of mankind is from mortality to immortality, and then immortality to mortality, rather than mortality to mortality and finally to immortality. Pre-mortal spirit world or mortal world paradise spirit world. To one of three kingdoms telestial, terrestrial, celestial. Those in celestial kingdom more mortal worlds. Pathway of the gods - continually descending into mortality without another mortal birth.